Let's talk about microphones. If you're going to start a podcast, or maybe you've already got a podcast, the most important bit of kit that you need to get is a microphone. The dilemma is, what's the best sort of microphone to get? And I think the temptation can be that you jump onto Amazon and you just have a look on Amazon at all the various different types of microphones that are available. I've just put in a search here for USB mics, and there are lots of them. And we're probably going to be tempted initially by a USB mic because it just plugs straight into our computer, our PC, our Mac, whatever it is that we're using, and we can just start going right away with this microphone. Are they any good? They can be okay. And that takes us on to the second most important thing to consider when you're recording your podcast. The first is the microphone. The second is where you record. You ideally need to be in a room that is in some way acoustically treated, because the microphones that you can get for not a lot of money on Amazon, the USB ones, they won't do a great job of isolating your voice from its surroundings. And maybe you've experienced this. You record and then you listen back and you don't seem to have the vocal presence that you hear other podcasters achieving on their podcasts. That sense that their voice is the only thing that's going on. You're not picking up the room. That's the challenge for us. So if we're going to be recording at home, maybe in the spare bedroom, maybe in the kitchen, maybe just in our home office, wherever it may be, and we're going to go for an inexpensive USB type mic that we're just going to plug into our computer and get going, you're going to need to think about treating the room in some way. So that's reducing the number of hard surfaces that you have in your room. And that can be difficult. You're putting rugs down on hard floors. Some people even hang rugs and extra curtains around where they're recording. And the challenge with that is, or the difficulty with that is, you start to lose the aesthetics if you're recording video along with your podcast. So you need a mic and you need to be recording in a room that's suitable for audio recording. Those things are challenges. Let's just quickly talk though about microphones. I've got a couple here. This is an Electro Voice RE320 and it's a dynamic mic, and the one that I'm using here is an Electro Voice RE20, which is also a dynamic mic. Let's talk about the differences in the types of microphones that you can record with. We've already looked at Amazon and you get the fairly inexpensive microphones on Amazon. A lot of these are going to be what are called condenser microphones. So you can possibly see it there. Condenser mic, condenser mic, condenser mic. And a condenser mic is going to allow you to be further away from the mic without necessarily your voice dipping in and out. But we're going to run into the same problem as I mentioned earlier. You're going to pick up a lot of the room in which you're in. So again, if the room isn't acoustically treated, that's going to make for audio that even though you might think, well, I've got this microphone and it maybe looks the part, it's probably not going to sound the part just because it's the wrong type of microphone. So the microphone that I'm using here, the Electro Voice RE20, this one, the Electro Voice RE320, and the other one that I have on the desk, this is a Rode Procaster. These type of mics are dynamic mics. They can be a little bit more expensive, but let me talk you through some of the benefits of dynamic mic. There's the Rode Procaster, 189 quid. The Electro Voice RE20 is over 500 quid. One of the most popular podcast mics, everyone's seen this, the Shure SM7B. It's £413. Dynamic mics right off the bat are probably going to be a significantly greater expense for you when you're starting your own podcast. But here's the benefit of a dynamic mic. The dynamic mic is all about isolating the voice from its surroundings. It's all about proximity, so you tend to sit quite close to them. A condenser mic, as I mentioned, you can sit far back and it'll still pick up your voice, but it'll pick up the room. These type of microphones, dynamic mics, are great at just isolating your voice and rejecting the room round about you. It doesn't mean that it's going to completely reject a room that's echoey or has a lot of hard surfaces. That will still be reflected in the overall sound that it will capture, but it will do a better job of rejecting the room round about you. And it's only dynamic mics that we use in the podcast studio Glasgow. We don't use condenser mics. We only use dynamic mics because we want to capture the best possible sound from our clients and their guests when they speak. Our rooms are acoustically treated, but we want to do an even better job of rejecting anything else that might be going on in the room and making sure that the voices that are captured have real presence. And that's probably going to be your number one goal when you're choosing your microphone for your podcast, that you've got that vocal presence on the mic. There is a bit of a downside with dynamic mics like this, the Shure SM7B, the Rode Procaster. The downside is they require quite a lot of gain. And gain is just, well, put it this way. We were sent audio files from a studio in London where a client of ours had recorded, and they were using Shure SM7, I think it's the DBs, it's the sort of the budget level of the Shure SM7B that you can see here. And when we ran the audio through Adobe Audition, we noticed that the audio was only peaking at minus 34 dB. Without getting overly technical, all you need to know about that is the mics were way too quiet. When we output the audio captured in the studio to our clients, we make sure that it peaks at minus 6 dB. So these mics require a lot of gain, basically loudness, in order for them to sound good. That is determined by your audio interface, typically. And most prosumer audio interfaces, like, for example, the Rodecaster, which is a sort of mixer that you can plug mics into and record your podcast, they don't provide enough gain for dynamic microphones. When you have a dynamic mic and you're running it into a standard audio face, you need some sort of gain boost. One brand is Cloudlifter. They go for about £100 each. So if you get two microphones, you need two Cloudlifters. That's going to be an extra £200 or so on top of the price of the microphone. But these gain boosters are going to provide nice clean gain, no noise getting added into the signal, and it's going to give you nice, robust, rich sound from your dynamic microphones. And the other thing you need to consider if you're going for any type of mic that is not USB, i.e. it can plug directly into your computer, is some way of getting the XLR cable, which is the audio cable these mics need, into your computer. And that takes me back to what I mentioned a second ago, the audio device that you need to use. For some people, it's maybe just a straightforward USB audio interface, and they plug the mic into that and the USB cable into the computer. You need to factor in the gain. It's unlikely these USB audio interfaces will give mics like this, which will create nice, clean, dynamic sounds. They're not going to have enough gain to properly power these mics, so you're going to need to introduce one of those gain boosters like a Cloudlifter between the microphone and the USB interface. That's just a wee overview of some of the things that you need to consider if you've started 2024 with the resolution that you're going to start a podcast. You need to think about the microphone. You need to think about the type of mic, dynamic or condenser, and you need to think about the interface between the mic and your computer. I would always urge folk not to go for the cheapest option and just getting a USB mic. You will be, and I can almost guarantee this, you will be disappointed at the sound quality. It will not match your expectations, and your podcast won't sound the way that the big podcasts sound with their more expensive mics and more expensive audio interfaces. And you're also going to need to consider the room that you record in. If it's a room with a lot of echo, we would call it wet. You know, if you clap your hands and there's that reverb, then it's going to be difficult to strip that out of the audio that you record, regardless of the type of microphone that you choose. So the takeaway is, invest a bit of money, get a good quality dynamic mic, get some form of gain booster, whether it's a cloud lifter or an off-brand version, and you can get them for about £35 and get a good quality audio interface that will sit between the mic and your computer. Having said all that, the Podcast Studio Glasgow is here to help. So if you want to just jump into the world of podcasts, podcaststudioglasgow.com, check out what we offer, hit us up with an email if you want to come in for a tour, or just go ahead and book and start that podcast in 2020.